Welcome to the Sky Commander Flight Brief. It's your mission-ready podcast for drone pilot training and aerial insights across Canada.
From Transport Canada rules to real-world drone ops, we break it down, take you higher, and help you earn your wings. Because here at skycommander.ca, we don't just fly.
It hints there's more to it. It's a masterclass, a deeper level, maybe a philosophy or a community focus, perhaps.
It's definitely intriguing, sets them apart from just, a basic tips show. Skycommander.ca is the obvious next step. Precisely. If you're thinking about flying a drone in Canada, boom, this content is aimed right at you.
Powered by skycommander.ca.
The elite podcast for Canada's drone pilot. Okay, let's get started. Welcome back to The Deep Dive, where we take a mountain of dense information, in this case FAA proposals and complex operational manuals, and really just distill it down to what you actually need to know.
Yeah, be actionable insights.
Exactly. And our mission today is, it's focused on probably the biggest shift happening in uncrewed aviation, moving beyond visual line of sight. BVLOS.
And we should be really clear right from the start. We are not talking about advanced piloting skills here.
No.
We're talking about what defines true excellence in this world, and that is operations engineering. This is about designing systems, not just flying an aircraft.
That's the perfect way to frame it, and we're going to use the proposed FAA Part 108 rules as our blueprint.
Right, specifically that big NPRM, the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. That came out in August 2025.
It gives us a look into the future so we can build for what's coming, not just what's here today with waivers and exemptions.
Yeah, our listener wants the practical stuff. They want to know, how do I actually run this?
Yeah.
So we're going to lay out the framework to run a small, dedicated, but, highly scalable 8-person BVLOS command center.
So the mission for this deep dive is pretty clear then. We're going to unpack the roles, we're going to define the operational rhythm, and then get into the weeds on those high-stakes scenarios that really separate the pros from the amateurs.
It's a move from the pilot era, where one person was the hero.
Like the RPIC was everything.
To the program era, where the entire system, the governance around the operation, is what keeps you safe. So for you, the listener, this is really your shortcut to understanding how to build those scalable safety systems.
Okay, so let's start with the absolute basics, because this regulatory shift really informs every single decision you're going to make. What even is BVLOS, simply put?
It's just when the pilot or the crew can't reliably see the aircraft with their own eyes for the whole flight.
That sounds simple, but that definition, that one little change, it forces a total rethink of how you manage risk, doesn't it?
It has to, because you're no longer using your most basic safety system, your eyeballs, to, see and avoid things.
Right.
You're now relying on engineered substitutes. You're talking about systems, sensors, data links, and, most importantly, human processes. The mantra we use is this: you are now flying with systems instead of eyeballs.
And that distinction is everything.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the regulatory transition that Part 108 is trying to solve. Right now, most serious BVLOS ops are Part 107, but with a stack of waivers.
Yeah, we call that the permission per trick era. You need a waiver for this, an exemption for that. It's heavy on paperwork, and you have to prove your safety case over and over again for every little thing.
So Part 108 wants to move us into the program era.
Exactly. And the big shift there is accountability. It moves from just the single remote pilot in command, the RPIC.
Who is, just to be clear, the person ultimately responsible for the safe outcome of the flight.
Right. The accountability moves from that one person to the entire organization. It's a huge deal.
And this program era, it has 2 tiers of authorization, right? Operating permits and operating certificates. What's the difference?
So operating permits, you can think of those for lower risk, more limited operations. Small fleet, lighter drones, predictable environments. The idea is they'll be simpler to get, like a standing day pass with some standard rules.
But the real game changer, the one that really demands the kind of 8-person command structure we're talking about, is the operating certificate.
Absolutely. Certificates are for the higher risk stuff, heavier aircraft, longer flights, complex airspace. And the critical part is, to get and keep a certificate, you have to implement a really robust, formalized safety management system, an SMS, and an auditable training program.
We hear SMS thrown around all the time. But for you listening, if you haven't built one, what does that actually mean? What is the FAA asking for?
It means the FAA is basically saying, look, we don't just trust your luck or your flying skills anymore. We need to see your homework. An SMS moves safety from being reactive, we fixed it after the near miss, to being proactive, strategic. You have to formalize how you identify hazards, how you assess risk, how you mitigate it, This is key, how you continuously improve.
But you have to prove it.
You have to prove it with documentation. You're actively looking for failure points and designing them out of your system. You're basically running a mini airline administration department, even with just 8 people.
But that sounds like a huge administrative burden. If a certificate requires this massive lift, the SMS, the training program, isn't that going to crush smaller, more innovative operators?
That is the big question. It's the friction point. The FAA wants to raise the safety floor for these high-risk ops. For a small operator, it just means the kind of expertise you need on your team changes.
How so?
Well, you might not need 10 expert pilots, but you absolutely need 1 or 2 people who are expert systems thinkers, governance experts. And the new roles in Part 108, like the operations supervisor and the flight coordinator, they codify that shift away from a single pilot to a structured, team-based oversight model.
So the operations supervisor is the safety guru.
You could say that. They own the overall program safety, the compliance, the training, the relationship with the regulator. It's like a chief pilot and a safety manager rolled into one.
And the flight coordinator.
They're the tactical conductor during the actual flight. They're monitoring in real time and have the instant authority to step in. They're the commander in the field reporting back to the main office, so to speak.
Okay, so if Part 108 is the rule book, we need to know the players. Let's start building out that 8-person command center, starting with the 4 roles inside the ops room, the nerve center.
Right. In the command center itself, you have 4 highly specialized roles.
And first up is the Ops Center Team Lead.
Yeah, this person is often the one acting as the operations supervisor for that mission. Their main job is managing the external world and protecting the team inside. They own the tempo, the risk level green, yellow, red, and they make the final non-negotiable stop decisions.
So they set the culture.
They set the no-hero standard, absolutely.
Okay, next up, the flight coordinator, the tactical person you mentioned.
This is your moment-to-moment safety monitor. Their whole world is conformance monitoring. They're constantly asking, is the aircraft doing exactly what we planned, and is it inside all of our boundaries? They're the first one to call hold when a trigger is hit.
Okay, role number 3, airspace and stakeholder liaison.
This is your external communications hub. They're managing the dynamic environment, so filing LA&C, talking to air traffic control, coordinating with, say, airport ops or hospital security, and they are constantly checking for new NOTAMs and TFRs. They manage the outside world.
And the 4th ops room role, telemetry, DAA, and logger. That's a mouthful.
We just call this person the black box human.
Huh. I like that.
They're watching the system's health, data link quality, GNSS integrity, battery trends, the detect and avoid system. And critically, they own the event log. Every anomaly, every call, every system change gets timestamped. They are the memory of the mission for the audit trail.
Okay, that's the 4 in the command center. Now, what about the 4 essential roles out in the field?
First, you've got your field RPIC, or crew lead. They're executing the plan on the ground, handling the controls for launch and recovery, and they own the immediate site safety. They're the eyes and ears at the launch point.
Then you've got the launch and recovery tech.
Right. Their focus is purely on the physical aircraft. Battery management, payload checks, pre-flights. They make sure the aircraft is physically configured exactly as it's supposed to be. No last-minute changes.
Okay, and this 3rd one feels like it's becoming more and more important, especially in cities. The mobile visual support or ground risk watcher?
Critical, and so often overlooked. This person is not a replacement for BVLOS tech. They are a mobile risk mitigation tool.
So what do they do?
On a long inspection, they might move to pre-identified hotspots, like a busy intersection or a park. And they manage the public interface. They are the calm, informed person who can talk to curious or angry people without distracting the rest of the crew. They're a buffer.
That sounds really tough. They're managing public safety, but also public relations at the same time.
It's a huge challenge. And the unique risk is that if they're tied up talking to a police officer or an upset resident, they can't be watching for someone who might, jump a fence and walk into the hazard area.
So their procedures have to be crystal clear.
Their SOP has to prioritize ground safety over PR. They use a script, they identify the operation, give a phone number, and make sure people are safe.
Yeah.
That's it. Keep it emotionally neutral.
And the final field member.
You're a maintenance and configuration check. This person owns the integrity of the system, hardware and software. They handle firmware updates, configuration control. They are the firewall that prevents some well-meaning person from making a quick change in the field that hasn't been tested.
So we have our 8 players. Now for the key insight here. Authority lanes. In a small team, people have to wear multiple hats. But you're saying there are some combinations you just cannot have.
It's non-negotiable. Because clarity here prevents the single biggest failure mode, which is task saturation.
Okay, give me some hard examples. What can't you combine?
First, you never ever combine public argument with tactical monitoring. If your flight coordinator is suddenly in a heated discussion about privacy, 100% of their focus is gone. They are not watching the data link anymore. Tactical monitoring requires you to be cold and technical. Public arguments are hot and emotional.
That makes perfect sense. What's another one?
Never combine client pressure with gonna-go authority. Schedule pressure is the #1 killer in aviation, period. If your ops center lead is the one getting calls from the client saying, we need that data now, they cannot also be the one making the final safety call. You have to isolate that financial pressure from the safety decision.
The ops lead's job is to protect the safety buffer, not to trade it away.
Precisely. And the last one is never combine fixing a device with watching conformance. If your RPIC is heads down, troubleshooting a payload, they are not watching to see if the aircraft is about to breach a geofence.
These separations, this is the governance that Part 108 is going to be looking for when they audit your SMS.
It's the litmus test. If you ask two people, who decides to abort right now, and you get two different answers, you are not ready.
Okay, let's move on to the operational rhythm. The cadence. You've outlined this loop. Brief, gate, launch, monitor, intervene, recover, debrief, and improve. But let's really focus on two of those steps, the gate and intervene.
The gate is that formal, non-negotiable, gonna-go moment just before you launch. It is the last clean chance to stop.
How is that different from the brief you did an hour ago?
The brief is the plan. The gate is the confirmation of readiness right now. The ops lead goes down the line. Is minimum monitoring met? Are all triggers active? Do we have ATC clearance confirmed? The checklist has to be verbally confirmed green by everyone in the ops center.
So if the weather changed 10 minutes ago, you don't launch.
You re-gate based on the new reality, or you hold, period. The integrity of the gate is everything.
Right.
And then that leads to intervene. In a high-pressure situation, the absolute worst thing you can do is improvise.
Intervention discipline, the adult skill.
It is. You execute pre-brief triggers. You don't make it up as you go. Your plan has to define the response for a manned aircraft pop-up, for a lost link, for a geofence breach. So when the flight coordinator says the trigger word like hold, the maneuver is automatic. It's not a debate over the radio.
Debating just wastes time and increases risk.
Exponentially.
And this brings us to leadership posture. What works versus what gets people into trouble?
The posture that works is calm, decisive, low ego. The leader's main job is to shield the team from pressure, both from the client and from themselves, by sticking to the rules they all agreed on beforehand. They treat uncertainty, that little gut feeling that something's not right, as a real hazard.
And they listen to the most junior person on the team.
They have to. The posture that doesn't work is rooted in that hero culture. Debating on the radio while the drone is still flying, pushing through because we're almost done.
Planned continuation bias.
That's it. And here's the tell. In a bad ops center, hearing the word hold feels like a failure. In a good one, a clean abort is a win. It's celebrated because it means the safety system worked exactly as it was designed.
That idea, a clean stop, is a win. That is the SMS mindset Part 108 is going to demand. That's maturity. Okay, let's get practical. Section 2 is all about scenario friction, putting these roles and this rhythm to the test. Before we can even talk about intervening, you say the ops desk has to be watching 3 pictures constantly.
Right. This is the foundation of situational awareness. You're tracking the air picture, the system picture, and the ground picture.
The air picture. That's more than just looking at a map, right?
Oh, yeah. It's constant vigilance. You're tracking flight paths near airports, known heli routes, especially for hospitals, and you're monitoring your DAA sensors for anything that's not broadcasting its position. You're always assessing collision risk.
And the system picture.
That's the internal health check. Is the data link getting weaker? Is the GPS fix solid? Is the battery dropping faster than planned? Is the drone conforming perfectly to the flight path? It's the data science of the flight.
And finally, the ground picture.
This is all about people. Are people drifting into the operational area? Is a crowd forming? Is law enforcement on site? You need all 3 of those information streams at the same time to make a safe call.
Okay, let's jump into scenario 1, the urban power line inspection. The high consequence classic. You've got a 3.2-mile corridor. It's near an airport. There's a hospital heli route, and a school is getting out in 35 minutes.
The prep for this has to be meticulous. The brief has to plan for reality, not hope. For the air picture, the rule is, Helicopters don't RSVP. A medevac isn't filing a flight plan. It's going when it needs to go.
And for the ground, you have to work around that school dismissal.
It's a time box the operation. You set a hard trigger. Any helicopter alert or the moment we hit T-minus 30 minutes to school dismissal, we hold. Non-negotiable.
Okay, so now the friction. It's T-minus 15 minutes to dismissal, and the school principal calls, worried about the drone near the playground. What's the professional move from the ops lead?
Instant mitigation. The ops lead doesn't argue about being legally allowed to be there. They adjust the plan. They assign the mobile ground risk watcher specifically to that school perimeter right now. Give them the script. Give them the resources to de-escalate that ground issue so it doesn't distract the flight crew.
And then mid-mission, bam. Hospital helicopter lifts off unexpectedly. It's heading right for your corridor.
The flight coordinator sees it on the air picture, and they don't hesitate. They use the standard word, hello, hold, execute emergency descend profile alpha.
And the RPIC just does it.
The RPIC executes the pre-brief maneuver. Descend or land, no questions asked. And at the same time, the logger is typing, hello trigger, hold executed location, profile alpha outcome confirmed. Clean, professional, documented.
Now contrast that with the bad ops center. What happens there?
Chaos. The alert pops up and someone says, is that going to be a problem? Then someone else asks, did they file a flight plan? And they're all debating this over the radio while the drone is still flying straight ahead. That's plan continuation bias in action. We're almost done. Let's just push through. One is accountable. The other is an accident waiting to happen.
Let's switch gears. Scenario 3, wildfire perimeter mapping. This is about airspace swarm risk. Firefighting planes and helicopters are everywhere. They're unpredictable, and TFRs can pop up and change in the middle of your flight.
In this scenario, the airspace liaison becomes the most important person in the room, and they cannot have any other distractions. The moment that separates the pros from the amateurs is when a new TFR gets issued mid-flight, right over airspace you're in.
How does the ops lead handle that kind of ambiguity under pressure?
The ops lead has to enforce the rule. We will not interpret regulations on the fly. You don't guess. The second the TFR is confirmed, the flight coordinator calls hold, then the team executes a pre-written procedure.
A TFR update SOP.
Right. You pause the mission, you verify the exact boundaries of the new restriction, you adjust your flight plan inside the command center, and then you regate the mission before you even think about resuming. The core belief has to be, manned firefighting aircraft win. Every single time.
So the process itself becomes the safety net, taking human guesswork out of it when the pressure is on.
Standardization is the safety system.
Okay, a more subtle threat now. Scenario 4, GNSS integrity. You're flying near a refinery or a big substation, somewhere with a lot of RF interference, and your GPS signal is getting flaky.
This is where your black box human, your telemetry analyst, really earns their keep. They're not watching for a crash. They're watching for the clues that come before it. They're watching for trends.
What kind of trends?
Little position jumps that don't make sense, inconsistent ground speed readings, or maybe the GPS quality metric, the HDOP, starts to climb. They're looking for a stack of small anomalies that point to a bigger problem.
And why is that so dangerous, a little GPS flutter?
Because the system's ability to know exactly where it is becomes compromised. That can lead to it drifting out of its containment boundary, or, even worse, the flight controller doing something unpredictable because it's getting bad data.
So what's the trigger?
It has to be pre-briefed and explicit. Navigation integrity degraded by X for more than Y seconds means we hold. If it's persistent, we terminate. The ops lead has to hammer this home. An unknown navigation state is a hazard.
And the anti-pattern is just shrugging it off.
It's that normalization of deviance. Oh, GPS is always a little weird over here. That's a team admitting they've accepted a lower safety margin as normal. That is a failure of your SMS.
So the proper SMS thinking isn't just to land, it's to go back later and create a specific playbook for operating in that known high RF area.
That's the loop. That's the difference between being careful on one day and being consistently safe every day.
Last scenario for this section, system integrity. Scenario 7, a cyber incident. Your flight coordinator is flying the mission and suddenly they're locked out of the platform. An authentication error. You don't know if it's a server outage or if you're being attacked.
The ops lead has to frame this instantly and clearly. Cyber is flight safety. A loss of command center integrity is a loss of control, period. You need a cyber abnormal SOP.
And what's the first step in that SOP?
Immediately shift to your backup monitoring path. That has to be independent of your primary link. Maybe it's a visual observer, maybe it's a separate telemetry stream. You have to confirm you still have control. If you can't confirm that, You reduce risk and terminate, probably using a pre-programmed loss blink procedure.
And this ties right back to Part 108. The proposed rules explicitly call out the need for policies to protect your systems and data.
Yep. They're making it clear that cyber risk is flight safety risk. The anti-patterns here are almost always human things. Password sharing, using one generic login for the whole team, or just trying to push through while you're effectively blind because the client is waiting. If you can't monitor, you can't fly.
Okay, let's move into Section 3. This is about the systems that let you scale. Governance, standardization, and proof. It starts with treating mission planning like an engineering discipline.
This is where you can really see a team's maturity level. A real concept of operations, a Kona PS, isn't just a happy path flight plan, it's a risk map. You should spend more time planning for the failure modes than for the perfect flight.
Why that focus on failure?
Because your Kona PS is your legal defense and your safety net. It's proof that you thought through the risks before you ever took off. If you only plan for a perfect day, you haven't engineered a mission. You've just, hoped for one.
Which requires really strong change control, preventing that scope creep.
The rule has to be absolute. No unbriefed deviations. If reality on the ground changes, the wind kicks up, the client asks for just one more shot from outside the planned box, you have to stop and formally re-risk the plan. Scope creep is insidious. It's the slow expansion of the mission without ever rechecking if your safety mitigations are still valid.
That feels like a cultural fight against that just get it done mentality.
It is. A mature team has a deviation gate. You have to pause, rebrief, reassess the risk, and then regate before you continue. You have to build in the requirement to take a breath before you change the plan.
Let's use an example. Scenario 5, cross-border BVLOS. A client wants you to fly a pipeline that crosses from the U.S. into Canada without stopping.
The ops lead has to kill the fantasy early, as we say. The laws of physics don't change at the border, but airspace law does, instantly. Unless you have explicit, formal bilateral approval, which is incredibly rare and difficult to get, you have to treat this as two separate missions.
So what's the engineering solution?
It's a containment strategy. The airspace liaison doesn't just put a geofence on the border. They build a buffer zone, maybe a kilometer wide, that is a total no-fly area. The flight coordinator watches the distance to that buffer like it's a fuel gauge. The trigger is simple. Enter the buffer. Land now. Treating a sovereign border like a suggestion is a recipe for disaster.
Okay, next up. Comms mastery. You say good comms are boring.
They are exquisitely boring, and that's how you know they're safe. Comms are a safety system designed to kill ambiguity. So you have to use standard words: hold, abort, land now. And you must use closed-loop communications.
Walk me through that. What is a closed loop?
Okay, so the coordinator issues a command. Flight coordinator calls abort, abort, execute profile Charlie.
Then the RPIC has to repeat it back.
They have to acknowledge the intent. RPIC confirms, executing profile Charlie, abort. Then they perform the action. And then finally they confirm the action is complete. RPIC confirms, profile Charlie executed, aircraft is stable. That loop ensures the message was sent, received, understood, executed, and confirmed.
And the failure mode is just conversational chatter.
It's panic and ambiguity.
Yeah.
Hey, I think that's a helicopter. Maybe we should do something. All while the drone is still moving. No confirmation, no clear command, no debate radio. It has to be short, calm, and standard.
So we've got the rhythm for one mission down, but Part 108 is about scaling. Let's talk Scenario 6, tempo management. Your ops center is running 3 missions at once, and one of them suddenly goes yellow. It becomes unstable.
The risk, immediate. Task saturation. If mission A suddenly needs 100% of the flight coordinator's attention, and mission B has the ops lead tied up on the phone, what's happening with mission C?
It's being ignored.
Exactly. Logs aren't getting updated, nobody's watching the trends, and you miss the next problem until it's too late.
So how does a professional team manage that?
They use a traffic light system for the entire center. Green is normal, yellow means there's instability somewhere, and the immediate rule is no new launches, and stabilize what's in the air. Red means a mission is in a termination protocol, and the center is focused on that.
And the real mastery move here is something you call shed load. Why is that such a hard call for a leader to make?
Shed load means you pause or terminate a perfectly healthy, stable, profitable mission C, to free up brainpower to deal with the unstable one, mission A. It's hard because it costs money and it delays the client. But the rule is non-negotiable. You do not fly more aircraft than you can safely monitor. If you can't watch all 3 pictures for all 3 missions, you stop launching and you shed the easiest one.
Finally, for governance, evidence and traceability. Why are logs so important under Part 108?
Because evidence protects everyone. It protects safety, it protects the client, and protects your license. Under an SMS, you have to be able to reconstruct the entire story of a mission. What happened, who decided what, and why. If you have an incident, that audit trail is what proves your system was working. Hiding a miss is a trust killer with the regulator.
So what's the minimum evidence you need to be logging? More than just a flight path, I assume.
It has to capture who was in what role, what authorizations were used, what risk controls were active, every anomaly, every intervention, the call, the confirmation, the outcome, and the final result. If you can't prove who decided what and why, you don't have traceability, you just have a story.
Let's use scenario 10 for this. The data quality crisis. The flight was safe, drone landed, but you missed the shot. The client can't use the data.
This is where you need a quality gate. It's a final check of the data before the team leaves the site. If the data isn't good, the ops lead needs to immediately replan a quick reflight right then and there, document it, and get it done. Leaving the site without checking the data means you failed the client, even if the flight was safe. This is where operations engineering meets business reliability.
Which brings us to our final section, the capstone skills. The things that take you from just being competent to true mastery. And it all comes back to that core mindset shift we started with.
Right. BVLOS mastery is about operations engineering. It's designing systems that keep you safe even when the humans in the loop are tired, distracted, or under pressure.
Yeah.
It's about turning judgment calls into documented triggers.
Which requires building what you call a stop culture.
It is absolutely non-negotiable. Most failures are the result of late decisions. Mastery is about intervening early. You have to create a culture where any crew member, from the senior lead to the brand new tech, can call hold or abort without any fear of being questioned or punished.
What's the biggest barrier to that? Is it just ego?
It's ego, and it's that planned continuation bias. The way you overcome it is by making the stop conditions formal and visible. You have a card for every brief that lists the triggers. Air triggers, system triggers, ground triggers. If it's written down, it's not a personal judgment, it's just following the procedure. The real failure is that normalization of deviance. That little voice that says, we always bend that rule a little, and it's been fine.
Another tool for this is the minimum monitoring standard, the MMS. You say this separates spectators from supervisors.
Without a defined MMS, your command center is just watching a video game and hoping for the best. The MMS has to be written down. What is the minimum state of health and visibility you need to continue?
Give me some concrete examples of what's in an MMS.
Sure, it could be telemetry latency must remain below 500 milliseconds, or GNSS HDOP score must be below 1.5, or containment status must be confirmed every 60 seconds. If your MMS isn't being met for, say, more than 30 seconds, the action is automatic. Hold until you get it back, or terminate if you can.
Let's talk training. You said we need to stop letting real missions be the training ground.
You have to. Mastery requires practice under simulated stress. You build a ladder, you start simple, then you add complexity, airspace, ground, and multiple missions at once, and you have to drill the failures.
What are the must-drill scenarios?
Lost link, an instant helicopter pop-up that forces clean comms, a total cyber outage where you have to switch to your backup, and a high-stress public interaction on the ground. And currency has to be tracked and enforced. If you haven't practiced a cyber drill in 6 months, you are not current to fly a high-risk mission.
And the real enemies here aren't the machines, they're the human factors.
That's where the best leaders focus. Complacency, task saturation, and the big one, authority gradient. The fear a junior person has of challenging the boss. Mastery means you have to actively normalize dissent. The ops lead should be asking, what am I missing? And then rewarding the person who points out a potential problem.
Let's apply that to our last scenario, number 9. The police show up because a resident reported a spying drone.
The command center's response has to be segregated. The mobile ground risk watcher handles the police. They have a script. They are the calm, authorized liaison.
And back in the ops center.
The flight coordinator's eyes do not leave the screen. They stay locked in the aircraft. The ops lead assesses the ground situation and decides that the escalation requires them to land. And the RPIC, the person flying, is never, ever the one arguing with the police. You separate the roles to prevent a catastrophic overload.
Because you can win the flight, but lose the community, and that could jeopardize your ability to operate there in the future.
Precisely. A professional interface on the ground is part of the system. And the final piece of mastery, especially with Part 108 coming, is recognizing that system security is flight safety.
So basic cyber hygiene becomes mandatory.
Device security, two-factor authentication, and enforced cyber abnormal SOP. If your entire safety system can be derailed because one person forgot a password, your system is too fragile. If you suspect a cyber issue, the protocol is land, terminate. Part 108 will demand that level of verifiable system protection.
This has been a true deep dive. Let's wrap up with the BVLOS leader's mantra, the summary of what defines maturity here.
We boil it down to the 3P and 3C. The 3Ps are plan, perform, and prove. Plan your governance. Perform with standardized execution. And prove it with evidence and logs.
And the 3 Cs.
Compliance, conformance, and control. Compliance is following the rules, like Part 108. Conformance is making sure the drone actually did what you planned. And control is having the ability to intervene instantly and predictably.
So if Part 108 becomes the rule, the career moat for future ops leads isn't flying skill. It's the ability to design these safe, scalable systems. The SMS, the training, the comms.
All of this complexity we've talked about, the flight coordinator watching 3 pictures, the ops supervisor protecting the tempo, these are the skills that prove an organization is ready for the program era, that it can be trusted by the regulator.
So here's the final takeaway, the provocative thought for you, the learner, to think about. The highest skill in a sophisticated BVLOS command center is not the ability to fly farther or faster. It's the capacity to call an early clean abort without any hesitation or drama.
Because you learn and improve from a clean stop. It proves your culture and your system worked. A messy save where you got lucky and bent the rules, that just creates learning debt. And that debt is what eventually causes a serious accident.
Master the clean stop, and you master BVLOS. That's a wrap on today's mission, Commander. See above, go beyond, get ahead. For more training, tools, and intel, head to skycommander.ca. If you learned something new, share it, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star debrief.